welcome to another Watercolor Wednesday, my favorite day of the week when I get to share some watercolor fun with you. Today we're going to do this lovely, I hope it's picking up some shine and glitter for you. Let me get that light there. This flower using an interesting and easy technique that I saw Maremi Small Art doing. I will link her channel. She has more of a scrapbooking and journaling type of channel, but she shares some watercolor things every now and then. And I thought if you're interested in making a Mother's Day card or something, doing a flower like this, which is really easy, and then your choice whether you decide to, these stickles are still drying. I added stickles and glitter, whether you decide to add them or not. It's totally up to you. But I'm going to show you the technique. So to do that, I'm also using, you can buy these things called dot cards, and they are basically to try out watercolors, and they're very inexpensive, and you can buy expensive watercolor dot cards and then get to try out the expensive watercolor and see whether you like it and decide which color you like, which colors you would like to choose. And I did this one using some of the colors on here, and for today's one I'm going to be using this Imperial Purple, the Lavender and the Cobalt Teal, all of which lie together quite nicely on the color wheel. So we've got this kind of violet, and then lavender, which is kind of on this side of the violet, and the blue-green, the cobalt teal, is close, so they're not going to make a grey color. So what I've done, and what I'll show you, I've got a vessel of water, I've got a fat brush. I'm actually using this big dagger brush, but you could use a flat brush if you wanted to, or a round brush. And I've also got my round brush, and I'm going to be using both of these. And so I'm using some water. I've just got one vessel of water and 2 pieces of paper towel, and I'm just putting a dot of water onto this to activate it to each of the colors I want to use, and onto the teal. And then I've got my little palette here in case I need it. I probably won't need it. And then I'm going to put this here just to keep the water off the wood. Then I'm using my flower journal thingy, and I'm going to do it on this side because the paper is definitely better on this side of the page. And what you do is you need a circle. So to get a nice layout, it's best not to be slap bang in the middle. So I'm going to create the flower slightly on the one side. And I just want to have a guide of a circle. So very lightly in pencil, I've just marked that in. And then one could actually erase it as well. And to do that, I'm just going to use my kneaded eraser. So I just want a guide of a rough circle. It doesn't have to be perfect at all, but I don't draw circles very well. And then we're going to put dots down. You've probably seen things like this on Instagram. So you just need to get sort of the right amount of pigment. So I'm going to put a dot of purple, one, what more? So I'm using my round brush for this. 2, 3, I think we're going to have 5 petals, 4, 5, and then next to that we're going to take the lavender and we're going to put a dot of lavender. 4, 5, and then we're going to rinse our brush and we're going to put a dot of the cobalt teal in front of it. So I keep adding a little bit of water, but the mixture I've got on my brush is quite heavily pigmented, quite full of paint. You'll just need to play around a bit with that. And that's what we're using there, just rinsing the brush out. Now I'm taking the big fat brush and I'm putting it in the water and squashing a bit of the water out the sides. And then with it quite wet, I'm making this big petal. I've got too much water on it. Now I'm just correcting the shape of the petal. I find this dagger brush really tricky, which is why I'm using it for practice. That's better. Turning this a little bit. I quite like this. Get a nice big shape at the end. And out there. There we go. Just this one that landed up very wonky. Just try and correct the shape a bit, but it doesn't actually matter. I'm going to use my round brush with a little bit of the purple to try and draw in more of a petal shape. Now while it's wet like that, just rinsed my brush and putting it on the side. Now while those petals are wet like that, I'm going to take from this dark purple and I'm going to drop some in and do little leaf shapes. It's very different on this paper, and this should be less watery and more pigmented. Dropping it in there and dropping it in there, and now I'm just going to wait a few seconds for it to dry a bit. I just want that to be wet. It was drying a bit unevenly. You would be better off with good paper and this, but it's working on this paper. I'm just waiting for it to dry. Then I'm going to add a little bit more of the cobalt teal. It's nice to have some analogous colors so that you know they'll blend together and not make mud. So I'm just having fun there. And I want it to just dry a little bit more, and then I want to get more of the dark in there. Maybe I'll put some of the lavender on the end. While this is all wet. And it's a great way to try out paints, just playing and having fun with some expensive paints. I love using dot cards in all sorts of ways. Now this is dried a bit more. I think I'm going to just lift some of that is pooling. So I'm just soaking it up with my brush, and I'm going to spread what's there. Now I want my brush to be fairly dry with this imperial purple, and I'm going to again get more of the petal shape on the outside and rub it in at the base. And then I'm going to actually bring some in like that there. Nearly used up all the Imperial Purple from the dot card. You can see it's nearly all gone, the dot. So just the last little bit there. And because this is very loose and these two are bleeding into each other, I actually love that. Now we leave that to dry. And then we come back. Okay, well this is now nearly dry. And I'm going to add some leaves. I have just about used all the green up on this dot card, so I've got some of my other paint here, but you would, if you were using a dot card, you would do exactly the same sort of thing. I'm going to use that for the dark, but I'm going to actually use my palette to lift what's here onto the palette. Just shows how much you can get from one little dot of watercolor. It's actually, I know watercolors are pricey if you get good watercolors, but they last, I should imagine, unless you become an artist and do these huge pages of things. For doing the sort of painting I do, last me just about my lifetime, I should imagine. So I'm using, I have some Winsor&Newton Professional Watercolors here, and I'm going to have my swatch card. I think I'm going to use this oxide of chromium color, which I quite like. Mix that in there, just a little bit more. And then I'm just going to add, wherever there's, aiming your point of your brush, using a round brush for me is still the easiest way to make leaves. Aim the point towards the center and then bring out a thin little stalk and add another stalk to it, and you can point and belly. Now this is the funny paper that the sizing's not so great on, so it's also quite thirsty paper. So now there's that little bead of water. I'm just spreading it around to make it evenly wet, because the amount of water affects how something looks, how it dries, and the end result. And then I find in any art to have odd numbers works better, so I'm going to make that 3 leaves here. Now I've rinsed my brush and I'm going to make this next one. I need to turn. I can only work in one direction. That's too light, but I wanted the leaf light. So I'll just charge my brush again, and now if your flower is not quite dry, then the green will bleed into the flower a little bit, and sometimes that's quite attractive. It happened here, and I actually rather like the result, but it was not my intention. It was one of those happy accidents that one sometimes gets in art. So making leaves. I don't think I'm buying another one of these books because the paper is weird. I think I might do a leaf overlapping there. So it's going behind, as if it's behind the petal. Just keeping moving the water, and now you can see that's an even number. It's 4 leaves, and it's not quite as pleasing to the eye as if there's an odd number. So I'm just going to bring another one out here. And now some more leaves here, maybe just a few. I wanted that one quite light. I need to soak up some of that water. And I'm just going to spread it around a bit more. And I'm going to spread that around a bit more there. And over here, I think we need some more paint. But while these are still wet, I'm going to sorry, I cannot concentrate and talk at the same time. What I was going to say is, while these are still wet, I want to drop in some of the dark color, but I'm going to keep going around this for a moment. And then I can always just add a little bit of water to it. That one's landed up. You can always fix something that doesn't look great. Just use your paintbrush as if it was a pencil and draw the leaf to suit yourself. I'm just spreading that around a little bit. Now I want to use up this, it's a beautiful color, it's called Jadeite Genuine, and I want to use this up to create some darker centers. And I think that this is too dry. This one isn't, that's going very nicely. So what I'm going to do over here is just from the top down, I'm going to add a little bit of water, clear water, and then this will bleed in there. Same here, so not very wet brush. There's too much water puddling here. So if you were using Arches paper or something, this whole process would be much easier. But you can make pretty art with any paper. And I really think this little flower would turn out as quite a pretty Mother's Day card. Just going to mop up some of this here. And then add, I'm just going to drop in, so I'm going to actually go over the stem and drop it in. Add some interest, and I like that one highlight that we've got there. So there, I think that looks quite pretty. Now, this has to dry, and then we come back. Okay, well now everything has dried nicely, and we're going to add the finishing touches. You could do some more details in the leaves if you wanted to. I'm not going to. I've got some stickles here. I'm going to be using those, and before I use those, I've got a micron pen here. I have a 02 and a 08 size. The 02 is a bit finer, and with that I'm going to, again, you don't have to, you could do the center in watercolor if you wanted to, but I just felt like going a bit mixed media, and I'm doing very flicky. Need to keep checking I'm on screen, so please excuse my squeaky chair. I cannot do things backwards. I suppose as a YouTuber I should learn to, but here we are. So I'm just doing some lines, and I'm going to put little dots at the end of them. And then I'm going to do the center in pen. On the previous one that I did, I used a fatter micron, and this time I decided to go very fine, and I'm going to do little lines all the way around the center like this, the way flowers have. And then I'm going to draw little circles, different size circles, as I've shown you before when I've done doodles with watercolor. It's a very nice way to fill things, and then we can make a decision. Are we going to leave the circles like this, or are we going to fill some of them in? Or what are we going to do? So it gives us some options. And then if you happen to be good at handwriting, I would suggest you do a Mother's Day greeting on it as well. Before you could then glue it onto a card. You could repurpose an old card if you wanted to. I think that would be quite a great idea in today's day and age of repurposing things. Or you could make a card, cut it out and paste it onto a different piece of cardstock. I kind of like that. One could color some of them in. I'm a bit scared that having once started we'll end up having to do them all. So I wanted to leave some of them open. And again, one could draw over that and make it that style of sketching, the same as I did this, which I did with a paintbrush, but you could do that kind of thing with a pen. It looks quite nice, but I don't want to. That's not my choice for today. So I'm going to use this one, which is called Pacific Coast. I hope it looks nice in here. It's a new stickles for me, and I'm going to put some dots on it. So I used a pin, and I hope it comes out now. There we go. think I'm getting more glue than glitter at the moment with this one. I don't know why it's not coming out. I'm going to leave that one and use my silver so long. That's fine. Doing nicely, but I did want a dark one. I think I might have to do the little trick of poking a hot needle through it or something. So I don't want to put too much glitter on this. I might put a few little dots at the end of the leaves. Oh, I love glitter. It's my favorite thing. So pretty. Ha ha ha, look at that shining. Very frustrated with this because it is open. I'm scared it's going to burst or something. Yeah. So I'm going to leave that like this, and I hope you've enjoyed watching me do this card, and I want to show you with this one that I did. I've turned it into a card, and I'll show you, and I actually also scanned it into the computer and turned it into a printable card. So this is what it looks like as a printable card with a nice envelope to go with it. And this is what it could look like if you turned yours into a card. I think that's quite pretty. So if you would one day like me to show you how to do that, let me know in the comments and I can make a video on something like that. But I would like to say thank you so much for watching, and I would like to say thank you to Maremi Small Arts for the inspiration to do this. And as I said, I will link her channel below. She's got quite a large channel. It's all about doing scrapbooking and making pretty things. And if you haven't been to her channel before, give her a visit. I think you'd enjoy it. So thank you for watching and have a wonderful, creative and happy day. Bye-bye now.